Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
When we talk about the space race, a lot of people probably think of the billionaires, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson. But there's a different kind of space race happening, and it's the race to fill low Earth orbit with satellites. And that's the focus of a new HBO documentary, Wild, Wild Space. It premieres tonight at 9 p.m. Wall Street time on HBO.
Here's a tiny bit of the documentary talking about how so much of what we rely on comes down to the satellites that are flying all above our heads.
Most people don't appreciate how much of their lives has space technology underlying it. The fabric of our civilization runs on satellites. From package delivery tracking, GPS, tomorrow's weather forecast, internet delivery.
And that, of course, is from the HBO documentary Wild, Wild Space, premiering tonight at 9 p.m. Wall Street time on HBO.
The documentary based on Ashlee Vance's book, When the Heavens Went on Sale, the misfits and geniuses racing to put space within reach. And we've got with us Ashlee, also a features writer at Bloomberg Businessweek, also the author of the first Elon Musk biography, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future. Also joining us in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studios is Ross Kauffman. He's the director of Wild, Wild Space. Ashlee, Ross, welcome. We loved the documentary.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, congrats.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. The film, years in the making, and we actually see some of the main characters age quite a bit in the film.
Ouch.
No, but everybody ages.
So
Come
true.
on.
It's so
everybody
true.
ages. I mean, you see masks during the pandemic.
Yes.
You see, it's kind of crazy. You see empty warehouses filled with like lead paint chips go into, pristine areas where they're building rockets. Ashlee, how did the film come together?
Well, I'd done the Elon Musk biography, which came out around 2015, and was not a space nerd going into that, but SpaceX was my favorite stuff to report on. And then right when I finished the book, pretty much because I think SpaceX had proven some things out and commercial space felt real, there were these rocket and satellite companies that suddenly were popping up, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And everyone thought, oh, I'm going to be the next Elon Musk and whatever. People thought maybe you can actually make a go of this. And so I just kind of caught the bug, and I spent a couple of years going literally all over the world trying to find the most interesting stories. And so, a bunch of those went into the book, and then started filming a bit along the way, just because I had this access to these rooms. You don't usually get to have a camera, and we kind of caught the companies young enough where you were able to like be in the mission control and film these things that you never ever get to see when a rocket blows up. And
That's what I was amazed about.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, wait a minute. How the heck did they know? Like, I was like, was the footage with somebody else? But you were filming it all along.
yeah, I mean, some of this, I credit the companies for giving us this access and
Right.
taking this risk. Astra Space is one of the main companies in the film. The CEO, Chris Kemp, we had this arrangement early on when it was really 5 people in a garage. He said, look, if you want to go on this journey, you can tell the truth, whatever happens, good or bad, and come with us all the way to orbit for the first time. And that ended up being this very winding road. And to Chris's credit, he did let me do what he said.
And you feel it. Ross, come on in. So how did you come into the picture? And when you also were able to finally like see some of the stuff that Ashlee had,
Yes.
filmed, were you like, oh my God, a gift?
Well, it was really first of all, I got a call from HBO, and they said, hey, Ross, we have this documentary footage. It wasn't a documentary yet. It was footage that this author from Bloomberg filmed, and it's kind of all over the place, to be honest with you. And they said, we'd love for you to come in, take a look at some of the footage, and then see if you feel like you can make a movie out of it in some way, shape, or form. And so I went in, and I didn't realize, no one had told me there was about 300 hours of footage. So I was like, okay, well, this is a bit more of a job than I thought. And so, but I screened the footage with my editor, and some of the footage was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, being in those rooms where rockets crash, and it was incredible. And then some of the footage was really not. It was funny. We really had to really gut through it all and try to figure out. What I love, and I said this before, is that when you first started shooting, Ashlee, like the footage is not very good because you didn't really know how to film the people. But as you progressed, as the years went by, the footage got better and it mirrored how the companies functioned, right? And it really, like, stylistically, it was perfect.
Yeah.
But who could have ever thought that? Anyway, so that's kind of how I got involved.
At what point, Ross, did you sort of have the story come into place?
About 5 minutes before we finished editing.
Because it really is.
Yeah.
It's not a. You're not telling. You're sort of telling a story in real time.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff is. You can check the stock prices of some of these companies today. Still,
You might not want to.
exactly.
Yeah.
You might not want
Yeah.
to for some of them.
Yeah.
Some of a couple of
But
them.
you follow the process from essentially from birth all the way to going public during this crazy run up during with SPACs and COVID. Like when did you figure out the story?
Well, we were literally shooting until maybe a month before we finished editing.
Wow.
Yeah, things are happening, and that's the beauty of verite documentaries. You're following things as they're progressing.
Right.
I mean, this kind of film kind of stops. It doesn't end. You know what I mean? I mean, the film itself ends, but the process is
Companies
like,
are
all right,
still-
we have to stop filming at some point, and this is the film. So that's kind of what I love about this kind of filmmaking, is fly on the wall filmmaking. You get in that edit room, and that's where you craft the story.
Well, Ashlee is an incredible storyteller, and we've been very lucky to have him here at Bloomberg and be able to talk to him about all of his stories on space and whatever you're working on. Having said that, how was it to see kind of the book come to life, and what was important to you in telling these stories?
It was really cool. As Ross was saying, I had never made a film before. I just had this idea. This would be a cool thing to try, to do a movie and a book at the same time. It turns out I bit off more than I could chew. And look, I mean, Ross has won an Academy Award. It was amazing to have him come on. And so, he came on with fresh eyes. I had spent years reporting on these subjects. You start to lose a little bit of perspective of what the wider world knows, what they don't know, what's going to appeal. And so Ross had gone through the book. He'd gone through the footage, and as you guys saw, a lot of this story is this group of friends who were at NASA Ames, which is the NASA Silicon Valley Center, in their 20s. They had this guy, Pete Worden, who was the head. He was this iconoclastic brigadier general who wanted...
Here's the dad and the grandfather and the uncle all rolled into
He
one.
is, right? And he brought in all these young kids and wanted them to do weird stuff in space, like go show that NASA can be better, was basically it. And so I think Ross, got into a lot of that part of the story, and that sort of ends up becoming the heart. And so, it was really gratifying to see it come out of the book and to see how another storyteller, what they were interested in and how they told it.
Well, Ashlee's certainly a prominent part of the film, but it also focuses on three founders. We've mentioned some of them: Peter Beck of Rocket Lab, Chris Kemp of Astra, and Will Marshall of Planet Labs. Coming in it from a perspective of somebody outside of the industry as a filmmaker, I mean, are there three more perfect characters who you could put on the screen and follow? I mean, these guys are
So
like...
true.
Truly.
Well, it was
For
great.
different reasons.
Absolutely. But there's this unifying principle that we kind of came up with at a certain point very early on. And everything kind of fell into place. The principle was, like, I love found families. In all my films, they end up being these crazy families and in this case, this Brigadier General, Pete Worden, brought in these young people, and they became this little found family. And I was like, that's kind of what I love. Like, and there was love there. Their friendship, there's love, and that's kind of a big part of this film. And people just have a great time. This is a really funny film. It's a bit of a romp. So bringing these people together, figuring out the characters, because Ashlee's book it's got more than 3 or 4 characters. I mean, you have like multiple characters and companies. So that was, just trying to figure out who do we follow. Well, that was the principle that we went with, and I think it worked.
I do feel like the 3 main characters are kind of, Freudian id, ego, and superego, but we can talk about that in just a moment.
Definitely archetypes, yeah.
30 seconds, and then we're going to come back and talk more. Did you guys agree, though, these were the 3 characters, these were the 3 companies you had to tell the story about?
I think there were a lot of discussions along the way, but we never had really, I don't ever remember any fights or disputes or anything.
Well, I'm just going to say very clearly, like, I had a couple of things going for me. 1, I knew nothing about space, and 2, Ashlee's an incredible person to work with. And the book was amazing, so it was kind of seamless.
We're back talking with a couple of the folks behind Wild Wild Space. It's a new HBO documentary premiering at 9 p.m. tonight, Wall Street time, on HBO. As we mentioned, the film follows entrepreneurs of 3 companies. One of those is Astra Space, and Here's the co-founder of Astra, Chris Kemp, counting down to a launch.
This is our last day in our launch window. We're going to get it this time. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I think so too.
Counting down.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Well, that one obviously.
I'm going to say for those
successful.
listening on radio, the launch finally went off.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering.
That's from Wild Wild Space, the new documentary premiering at 9 p.m. tonight, Wall Street time on HBO.
All right, let's get back to Ashlee Vance, features writer at Bloomberg Businessweek, author of the first Elon Musk biography, Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future, and a producer of the film. And with us, Academy Award winner Ross Kauffman. He is the director of Wild Wild Space. An earlier film of his, Born into Brothels, won the Oscar for Best Documentary 2005, as well as the Emmy for Best Documentary 2005. And he's been taking pictures in the studio, and we're assuming they're going to be killer pictures. We all want copies of them. We're just going to put it out there.
Maybe get us an Academy Award.
That's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure.
No pressure.
All right, so Ashlee, tell us, I keep saying the id, ego, and super ego. You do have three main characters and companies that are profiled. Tell us about them.
Yeah, well, Chris Kemp, who we got to see in the clip, I always thought of him as this archetype of Silicon Valley. Almost, he's this unbridled ambition, this person who'll stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He's, as we mentioned in the film, he's a capitalist and quite driven. We have this guy, Will Marshall, who is the founder and CEO of Planet Labs. I've known him forever. We describe him as a space hippie in the film. I think that's fair. He's always tried, he kind of came from this university background where he was trying to do good in space. They've created all these imaging satellites that track rainforests and the movement of refugees and things like that. And then we've got Peter Beck, who comes from New Zealand. It's probably one of the most incredible stories you'll ever hear. He has no college education. He's self-taught in aerospace, which does not happen. Just so people know.
Phenomenal.
You're supposed to have a PhD at the least to do this. And, these days Rocket Lab is really, after SpaceX, is really the most legit rocket company there is. And Peter is just that archetypal engineer. I mean, he is rockets call to him. He has to build things with his hands. This is what he was put on Earth to do, and he's possessed and all that. And then some of these characters, we see them, these things get challenged over time. Will Marshall starts as a space hippie, still is one, but Planet goes public during all this. It does a lot of deals with governments. Its satellites sit in this weird place between nonprofit and not spying, but kind of watching everything that happens for governments. And so, I think the film gets into some of that.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that tension, Ross, because that's something that is certainly notable, is this idea of optimism and opportunity among the characters, but at the same time, this idea of democratizing imaging of every single thing every single day on Earth is something that, if not used correctly and in the hands of somebody with ulterior motives, isn't necessarily a good thing.
Absolutely. It's like anything. Look at the internet, right? People went in with the best intentions, and it doesn't always work out. Individuals are flawed. It's gray area. These companies have to make money. It's a slippery slope, and we're kind of dependent on these individuals, hoping that they will do the right thing. But when it comes to the bottom line, even the best intentions can sometimes go awry. So I feel like this film also sheds light on a lot of the issues that we are not only facing, but we will face.
I got to tell you, one of the things that kind of blew my mind is just how crowded it's getting. I know Bloomberg has done some reporting on this, and you think about, all of these satellites that are, floating around, and I do wonder kind of how you are thinking about that, and do we need to be worried? Do we need to clean it up? It's something you guys bring up in the film.
I thought about it a lot. Part of the reason I went into this book and the film was I'm a nerd, so I'm interested in this stuff, but I felt like the rest of the world wasn't paying a lot of attention to what's going on. Again, I think the film is funny. I tend to be pretty optimistic about things, but we do raise these questions. Most people have not paid attention as we've gone from 2,000 satellites in orbit to very quickly 10,000, and we're heading to 100,000.
Because they're going up every day.
They're going up,
or often.
It used to be a rocket went up once a month,
okay.
and that was pretty good. And SpaceX is going almost every 2 days now, and we really are on this exponential curve with the number of satellites that are going up. So the question is, are humans, every time humans find some new place that's interesting, they want to go, usually some bad things start to happen pretty quickly, and this is our last, not even pristine anymore, but our last bit of new territory to barge into. And so, are we going to repeat all the mistakes we've made here on Earth, or are we going to do something different? All these companies and governments and actors are incented to make this work, because the second something blows up and creates a bunch of debris, none of this stuff can operate. It's bad for everybody.
But we have to be worried about that right now. If you think about defense, right?
People make mistakes, and we show in the movie,
Yeah.
Russia. So Russia's the wild card in all this. Their space program's in the decline, but they're a very proud nation, and they have this great space history. They shot a missile a couple of years ago at one of their own satellites, just to remind everybody that they can do that. And so people can have the best intentions, but that doesn't always mean it's going to work out well.
What, after you coming in, Ross, as sort of a newbie when it comes to space, what was the thing that you took away that kind of keeps you up at night?
There's so much.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Again, this idea of private individuals kind of pulling the strings. Listen, space debris. Just the idea that, I read the other day that if for some reason our internet goes out, we lose GPS, we lose satellites, there's no real backup plan. It's one of those things where who knows what could go down if one of these worst case scenarios happen. The fact that there's no real backup plan, that's kind of one of the most frightening things to me.
Have you seen Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts?
Oh my God, yes, I love
It's
that
kind of
movie.
when things go astray and all
Right.
the Teslas
It's not a documentary?
are on the highway,
Okay.
all coming to one space.
Those Teslas, yes, definitely see that movie.
It just reminds us how dependent we are on all
Yes.
those satellites and all this connectivity.
Hey, Ashlee, I wanted to ask about Elon Musk, because the film is not about Elon, but there are some references to him, and you see him a little bit. I was thinking, with SpaceX being so successful at what these companies want to do, is there any chance that there's room for more than just SpaceX? Because make no mistake, they're the best at it.
Yeah, it's an open question. They're the world's biggest rocket maker and the world's biggest satellite maker, so that's a problem for some of these other companies. Lots of people have tried. Look, Rocket Lab and Peter Beck in this film are very legit. They just had their 50th launch. They did that faster than SpaceX. They got to 50 faster.
Do they become a Tesla?
No,
SpaceX, excuse me.
They've got a long way to go. Their next rocket
Yeah.
they're trying to make is a very direct competitor to the Falcon 9. I have a ton of faith that Peter Beck will figure out whatever he puts his mind to, but SpaceX is clear, the dominant force. I would say Rocket Lab. I would imagine that those two companies are the ones to stay for a long time.
I am curious, when you guys do a documentary film like this, is it a 3 or 4 hour film and it gets cut down, or right from the get-go, Ross, you're keeping it kind of lean and mean?
Well, I always like to kind of make a film whatever length it kind of needs to be. It sort of speaks to us in a way throughout the edit. But we knew very clearly this was a feature documentary, hover around 90 minutes. I always like to make it as short and effective and efficiently as possible.
So there wasn't severe editing at the end?
There's always severe editing every moment. But we're like surgeons by the end. We're cutting out every frame that makes sense to cut out. It's really, I love the process. We had an incredible editor, Patient Porter, on this film, my producer, Jay Callahan. It was just a great team. So.
All right, just got about a couple of minutes. I am curious, we are curious. What do you want people, or why do you want them to watch it, and what do you want them to take away? And let me go to you first, Ross.
I like to go into these movies without any really preconceived notions going in, and I don't even like to think about what people will take away from it at the end. I just want people to go in, see this movie, try to just understand it. One of the things I like to do is just trick people into caring.
Yeah.
So in a way, through great characters, great stories. That's kind of what I love to do. And then the information and all the different issues and problems. Hopefully, through these characters, they will come to a place where they care about the issues that these characters care about.
You told stories and you gave us a lot to care about. How about for you, Ashlee? What do you want people to come away with?
Well, look, for 60 years, space was dominated by a handful of governments. Almost any story you've ever seen about space revolves around that. It's some courageous pilot, it's some genius in a room solving a problem. Our film, I think, is the first to ever look at the reality of what space is like now, which is this is a business. It's full of real humans. There's struggle, there's comedy, there's tragedy, there's pride, there's ego, all of that. And so, I really honestly, I cover this stuff all the time for many years. I think this is the first true look at what modern space looks like, and it's amazing.
Modern space also means there's going to be a lot more companies. I mean, already there were a lot, right?
Absolutely. We're kind of in this weird period where the first wave, there's a few going bankrupt, but there's already many, many rocket startups coming to replace them. And so, yeah, I mean, we're in the very first innings of where all this is going as far as commercial space is concerned.
Well, congratulations, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so much. We enjoyed watching it, and good luck. And it's making its debut, Wild Wild Space, a new HBO documentary premiering 9 p.m. tonight, Wall Street Time on HBO. So check it out, everybody.
Yeah, the film based on Ashlee Vance's book, When the Heavens Went on Sale, the misfits and geniuses racing to put space within reach. He's also a features writer at Bloomberg Businessweek. Also with us, Ross Kauffman, Academy Award winner, the director of Wild Wild Space. Check out the film tonight at 9 p.m.
We
Wall Street
watched.
Time.
We loved.
It's very, very good.
Incredible.